Hey, what's going on, guys? Gunshed here, and welcome! Fingers crossed you can hear me okay. I've got a new helmet. Well, I say new. I bought it earlier in the year, but I've only just got around to putting the microphone in it. So hopefully you can hear me alright. Yeah, hopefully all is wired up correctly and there's not too much wind noise and all of that good stuff. I'm mostly worried about the camera angle. I don't think I mounted the mount straight on the helmet. And unfortunately, I glued the mount on about 6 weeks ago, so I am going to have no chance of getting it off if it doesn't line up correctly. So, fingers crossed all is working okay. So today, I'm afraid, I'm off to Sports Bike Shop. And I seem to spend a lot of time there, because the woman that used to own the burger van knew me by name. So I think this is going to be about the 4th time I've been to Sports Bike Shop this year. A couple of reasons why I want to go. My TCX boots that are waterproof, supposedly, after 18 months have completely let go. It used to just be in torrentially heavy rain that they leaked, which was fine. And after sort of a couple of hours, it's got to the stage where they can't do 10 minutes in light rain. I've tried sort of re-waterproofing them and it ain't working. The other thing that I need to do is have a word with them about my top box. The problem with the Givi Trekker top box is, it is brilliant. You know, it's lovely and big. I can fit my huge touring tank bag in and my helmet with ease, plus everything else, or, you know, 2 helmets or whatever, which is great. There's just one very slight problem, which is, when it's wet, spray off the rear wheel goes inside the lock, and then you can't unlock it because it fills with mud and rubbish off the road. As much as, you know, it's fine to occasionally have to spray it with GT85 or something similar, when you can't get into it mid-ride, that is very annoying. In fact, it's a bit like not having a top box. You've just got a big empty box. So I'm going to see what we can do about that. So not the most positive of trips, but hey ho, these things need looking at. If it fills up with rubbish after every ride in damp conditions, it's not suitable, is it? Ooh, new tarmac. They don't do enough new tarmac, do they? They just seem to patch roads rather than re-tarmac them. Have to watch out for mud on the road. This road is notoriously muddy. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about today, actually, has a lot to do with mud. I'm part of the MCN Ride 5,000 Miles Facebook page, and people talk about all sorts of things, whether it's, you know, just something excited about, like picking up a new bike, or I think the main encouragement is to post places that you've been and to encourage others to do 5,000 miles. But anyway, someone posted on there about, you know, the state of the roads in winter, tractor tyres leaving mud everywhere, and just there being mud all over the road. I just thought I'd sort of share my thoughts on this, because it's actually a potent conversation amongst motorcyclists. I mean, yes, you know, it's not ideal when there's mud on the road, and it can be very dangerous, but, you know, this time of year you kind of expect there to be mud on the road, don't you? And you ride to it. But lots of people going, oh, you know, farmers should clear up after themselves and things like that. But I mean, the farmers around me are pretty good at remembering to tidy up. You know, if they make a load of mess, they'll come along at the end of the day after they finish making mess, and they'll tidy it up, and they'll kick all the mud into the verge and stuff like that. But expecting them to do it, some people are saying, well, they should do it every time they come out of a field, I kind of think is completely unreasonable, because, you know, all fields aren't connected by farm tracks, so they have to go on the roads, and sometimes, you know, in harvest, I know that's not winter or whatever they're doing, they have to go in and out of a field multiple times. So to wash the tractor and the implement down every time they want to leave the field is completely unreasonable. You know, it cannot be done. There is simply too much mud created by a tractor. But lots of people get angry with farmers because, you know, you get stuck behind a tractor or whatever. And I think a little bit of patience needs to be made for them, because at the end of the day, they grow the meat and the crops that we need to survive. You know, if you get stuck behind a tractor, they can't pull over for every single car that's behind them. I know legally, I think there's 9 vehicles behind them. They have a legal obligation to pull over, as does any motorist. You know, if you're slowing down 9 vehicles, you have a legal obligation to let them through. I think it's 9, somewhere around that number. You know, a lot of people aren't aware of that. And I think the thing with the tractor is, a tractor and a fully loaded grain trailer actually weigh a heck of a lot. And if, say, the tractor was to pull onto that verge, and it was wet and damp, and one side was on solid surface, the whole tractor would tip over into the hedge, which, let's face it, we don't want. So they have to find a suitable place to be able to pull over, where there's hard enough sort of solid ground for both a tractor and a trailer. And yes, you may go, they're built to go off-road and stuff like that. They are. But if one side's on a solid surface, like the edge of the road, and the other's on a soft, naturally, it's gonna sink. Which can be really, really dangerous. But I think a lot of people don't actually realise that, you know, they can't just pull over. And I'm sure they'd be more pissed off by the fact that if the road suddenly got closed because there was, I don't know, 10 tons of grain blocking their way, that would be a sight more inconvenience. Again, people just don't realise it. I mean, someone on the group I think suggested, well, why don't they use a lorry on the road to transport the grain and then tractors in the field, so then the tractor doesn't go on the road. But the problem with that is the cost of it. If you think a lorry is what, I mean, a decent lorry new is 150 grand, something like that. Farmers aren't made of money despite what you think. Sure, you know, 30 years ago when the EU was paying them ridiculous amounts of money to produce food, so they all overproduced way more than they could actually sell, and the EU was buying it off them. I mean, you would do if you could do. And you know, the jokes about the butter mountains and the lakes of wine and stuff like that, but you know, sort of the 70s and 80s as such were the golden days of farmers making money, whereas nowadays they don't really get that. And there's an old saying, you know, that farmers are cash poor and asset rich, and that's true. All their money is tied up in assets because, you know, they have to buy new tractors and things. You know, a new combine is £300,000. You know, tractors can be 100,000, 200,000. So all their money is tied up in assets and maintaining the farm and things like that. It's only actually a farmer retires and sells the farm that they make any money. You know, most farmers tend to hand their farms down through generations, so they're never really going to see that. And they do ridiculous hours for not much money. Crop prices are low, milk prices are low, there's dairy shutting down left, right and centre. So many people are going bankrupt. It's unreasonable to expect them to go and buy a lorry just to drive on the roads. And if anything, a tractor's easier to overtake than a lorry because a tractor moves slower. So yeah, I just think, you know, people need to cut some farmers some slack. Be a little bit of understanding of the risks and constraints, but also, you know, so they say, oh, you know, farmers make a mess of the countryside and things like that. I don't think a lot of people realise actually how much they do. You know, they cut a lot of the verges and things like that because the council won't do it. They trim the hedges, they keep them neat and tidy. They do huge amounts of work, conservation work and things like that, so crop rotation to protect soil, which means it never gets over-farmed, which increases the risk of flooding. They do huge amounts of conservation work with animals, so cut and laying hedges, leaving runoff areas around their fields so that wildlife can breed and things like that. But no one really sort of thinks about all of that. They just think, oh, you know, they make most of the countryside, but actually the countryside would be a shite hole if it wasn't for the farmers. So a little bit of mud every now and then, I can live with it. Yeah, as I was saying, just, you know, give farmers a little bit of courtesy and a little bit of respect. I'd hate to be a farmer. Get up at 5 o'clock every morning, go feed the animals, or get out in the fields. Your livelihood being completely dependent on the weather. Good years, bad years, constant kit hire, combines catching fire, which is really common if they're not cleaned out, so that's another 300 grand. I bet the insurance policy doesn't cover fires. It's an expensive way to make a living, but some people have to do it, or else we'd all starve. Although as it is, the UK can't produce enough food to sustain itself. That's why we import so much. Right, anyway, I'll leave the video here. Let me know in your comments down below what you think of it. You know, obviously, farming is a big part of our country, and we love eating food. And yeah, just interesting to know, because I know bikes are quite shit hot on state of the roads and stuff like that, so it'd be interesting to hear. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and take care.